The morning light breaks over the wide, endless fields of Heartland Ranch. The wind moves gently through the golden grass, carrying whispers of memories long gone. A familiar horse gallops across the field, its rhythm echoing the heartbeat of a story that refuses to fade. And then, just for a moment, the world seems to stop. A shadow appears near the barn, strong, quiet, and unforgettable. Could it be? After years of silence, the one name everyone thought they'd never hear again suddenly fills the air. Ty Borden. The days that followed Ty's return felt like a dream. Not the kind you wake up from, but the kind that stays with you, haunting and beautiful all at once. Heartland Ranch began to feel alive again. Yet for everyone who saw him, there was a quiet question hanging in the air. How could the men they buried, the men they mourned, be standing here once more? But before the questions could find answers, memories began to flood back, memories of who Ty Borden really was. He came to Heartland as a lost boy, broken by the world and unsure where he belonged. The first time he arrived at the ranch, his eyes carried the weight of pain and anger, the kind that builds up from years of fighting battles no one else can see. Jack Bartlett saw it right away, the loneliness, the guilt, the hunger for a second chance. And Heartland, in its quiet way, gave it to him. Over the years, Ty learned what it meant to heal not just others, but himself. Working with horses, he found peace in the silence between heartbeats, in the trust of creatures that could sense kindness long before words were spoken. He wasn't perfect, but he was patient, steady, and strong. The kind of man who didn't need to say much to make his love known. People often said Heartland had a way of fixing broken things. But maybe it wasn't the ranch that did the healing. Maybe it was Ty. He became more than a ranch hand. He became family. He earned Jack's respect, Lou's trust, and most of all, Amy's love. Their story wasn't made of grand gestures or fairy tales. It was real, filled with laughter, fights, forgiveness, and moments that tested every piece of who they were. When Amy fell, Ty was there. When Ty lost his way, Amy brought him home. Together, they built a life rooted in loyalty and faith, a love that didn't fade when things grew hard. When their daughter, Lindy, was born, Ty held her like she was made of light. For a man who had once known only darkness, she became his dawn. He would whisper to her softly, promise her that no matter what, he'd always be there. And for a while, he was. He fixed fences, tended to sick horses, and worked late into the night beside Amy. They weren't just partners in love. They were partners in purpose. Then came the day everything changed. The hospital. The sterile smell. The moment the doctor walked in with eyes that couldn't meet Amy's, the world seemed to stop again. But this time, not with wonder. With pain, the kind that doesn't scream, but settles deep inside, heavy and endless. Heartland lost more than a man that day. It lost its heart. Amy tried to move forward because that's what Ty would have wanted. Jack held her steady. Lou kept the family together. And Lindy, too young to understand, became the spark that kept everyone breathing. But there were nights when Amy would sit on the porch, staring at the stars, whispering his name as if he could hear her. Somewhere, she hoped, he was listening, and maybe he was, because Ty Borden was never just a person. He was a feeling, a promise, a reminder that no matter how hard life gets, love always leaves a trace. The horses still reacted to his name, the wind still seemed to carry his voice, and every sunrise over Heartland looked a little bit like him, strong, calm, unbreakable. Now, standing before her again. Amy saw all of it reflected in his eyes. The years, the pain, the love, still there unshaken. Ty wasn't a ghost or a memory. He was the living proof that some bonds can't be broken, not by time, not by distance, not even by death. Jack, watching from the porch, felt tears sting his eyes. He remembered the young man he once doubted, the one who turned into the best kind of man, honest, brave, and kind. He taught Ty to fight for what mattered, but now it was Ty who reminded them all what it meant to hold on. Lou stood silently beside him, clutching a photo of the family, unable to believe the miracle her eyes were seeing. Heartland had weathered storms, fires, and heartbreaks. But this was different. This was something sacred. And as the day went on, everyone felt it. A shift in the air. A return of something the ranch had lost long ago. Ty's presence filled every corner again. The smell of coffee in the kitchen, the sound of boots on gravel, the soft laughter echoing across the fields. Heartland wasn't just a place anymore. It was alive again, breathing with the pulse of a man who had found his way home. And though questions lingered, where had he been? How had he survived? None of that mattered in this moment. Because for Amy, Jack, Lindy, and everyone who loved him, one truth was clear. Ty Borden had never truly left. He was always part of Heartland, its courage, its warmth, its soul. And now, against all odds, the heart of Heartland had found its way back. For days, Heartland felt like it was holding its breath. The news of Ty's return spread quietly, not through words, but through gasps, stares, and disbelief that hung in the air like mist over the morning fields. No one said it out loud, but everyone felt it. The impossible had happened. Amy still woke up every morning half expecting it to have been a dream. She would open her eyes, look across the room, and there he was, sitting by the window, sunlight catching in his hair, looking out at the same hills he once left behind. Sometimes he'd turn and smile, the same calm, gentle smile that once made the whole world feel safe. And in that smile, she saw every year, every tear, every unanswered prayer that had led to this moment. But with every heartbeat came the same silent question, how? At first, Amy didn't ask. She couldn't. It was as if the truth might break the fragile spell that had brought him home. The others didn't ask either. Jack kept his distance, pretending to fix things around the barn, but always watching, always thinking. Lou stayed close to Amy, protective and cautious, afraid that the smallest crack in this miracle might bring everything crashing down. Ty himself spoke little. His eyes held stories he hadn't told, scars that whispered of pain and survival. There was something heavy in the way he moved, slower, more careful. Some stories end. Some hearts heal. Sometimes life finds a way to bring back what we thought we'd lost forever. The sun rises over the Heartland Ranch, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Everything looks peaceful, but beneath the calm lies an emptiness that has never left. Amy stands by the paddock, her eyes fixed on the horizon. The sound of horses running usually brings her comfort, but today, it only reminds her of the past she's been trying to forget. The ranch feels alive, yet something inside her still feels missing, like a song without its final note. It has been years since Ty's passing, yet every corner of Heartland carries his presence. The old truck by the shed, the saddle he once used, even the coffee mug with his name faded at the edges, all silent reminders of the man who once made this place feel whole. Amy has learned to move forward, raising their daughter Lindy with love and strength. But no matter how strong she becomes, there's always that quiet ache when she sees Lindy smile. The same smile Ty used to have. That morning feels no different from the others. Amy brushes the horses, talking softly to them, her voice carrying the warmth of someone who's lived through heartbreak and healing. The wind picks up, sweeping through the open field, and for a moment, she hears something faint but real. A voice, a call. She turns, half believing it's her mind playing tricks on her again. But then she freezes. There, by the old barn, stands a figure she can't mistake for anyone else. He looks older, tired, but those eyes, those same calm, kind eyes, meet hers across the distance. Time slows. Her heart races. The brush falls from her hand, hitting the ground softly. She doesn't breathe. She doesn't move. The world around her fades into silence. It can't be real. And yet, there he is. Ty Borden. Alive. Amy takes one hesitant step forward, then another. The man doesn't speak. He just watches her, the same quiet strength he always carried now wrapped in mystery. The sunlight hits his face, revealing scars, signs of years lost, but it's him. It's truly him. Tears well in Amy's eyes as she whispers his name for the first time in years. The sound of it breaks something open inside her, a wall she'd built to survive. Her knees almost give out, but she doesn't stop. With every step, the distance between them grows smaller. The disbelief giving way to something she can't quite name, hope. As they finally stand face to face. The ranch that had long mourned him seems to breathe again. The horses grow still. The wind softens. And in that stillness, Amy feels the impossible. The heart she thought had closed forever starts to beat again. She reaches out, trembling, afraid he'll vanish if she touches him. But his hand meets hers, warm and real. For a second, neither of them says a word. There are no explanations, no reasons, no time lost, just two souls finding each other again. Against all odds, the sun climbs higher, casting light across the ranch, turning grief into something new, a fragile kind of peace. The air feels different now, alive with something that can't be explained. Maybe it's fate. Maybe it's faith. Or maybe it's simply love refusing to die. And as the morning settles over Heartland, Amy knows one thing for sure. This is only the beginning. Amy felt tears fill her eyes. They said you were gone. I saw her words broke, unable to cross the memory that had haunted her for years. Ty's gaze softened, filled with a sadness deeper than words. I almost was, he said. But something kept me alive. I woke up far from here, with no memory of what happened. It took years to find my way back. Amy searched his face for truth, for something solid she could hold on to. Everything about him, the voice, the warmth, the eyes, it was real. Too real, and yet the story didn't make sense. People don't just vanish and return after years like ghosts reborn. But as she listened, she realized it didn't matter. He was here now, breathing, real. Jack stepped out onto the porch, his boots heavy on the wooden floor. He watched Ty quietly, his face unreadable. You sure this is real? He asked, his tone gruff but trembling slightly. Ty nodded once. As real as it gets, Jack stared for a long moment, then sighed, the sound rough but full of relief. Then I guess that's all that matters. For a man like Jack Bartlett, words were never easy. But the look in his eyes said everything, the disbelief, the hope, the gratitude for a second chance no one dared dream of. That night, the family sat around the dinner table, Ty, Amy, Jack, Lou, and Lindy, just like old times. The air was thick with emotion, every smile carrying tears behind it. Lindy kept looking at Ty with wide, curious eyes, studying the man she had only seen in photos. When she finally spoke, her small voice broke the silence. Are you my daddy? The room went still. Ty's breath caught in his chest. He reached out slowly, his hand trembling as he touched her cheek. Yes, sweetheart, he whispered, his voice breaking. I am. Lindy smiled, innocent, pure, full of love. She leaned forward and hugged him tightly, and in that moment, every wall, every question, every shadow fell away. Amy watched them, her hand over her mouth, tears streaming freely now. It didn't matter how Ty had come back. What mattered was that he had. Outside, the wind carried the sounds of laughter through the ranch once more. The night sky seemed brighter, the stars shimmering with quiet joy. Heartland had been given a miracle, one no one could explain, but everyone could feel. And as Ty held his daughter in his arms, Amy knew that whatever truth lay behind his return, they would face it together. Because Heartland wasn't built on answers. It was built on love, on family, and on faith that somehow, no matter how lost you are, you always find your way home. The day after Ty's return, Heartland woke up to a kind of silence no one had ever heard before. The stillness that comes right before life begins again. Morning light poured across the ranch, soft and golden, touching everything it met. The fences gleamed, the horses moved slowly in the fields, and somewhere in the kitchen, Amy stood, her hands trembling around a cup of coffee she couldn't bring herself to drink. She could hear footsteps outside, firm, familiar, and for a second, her heart forgot how to beat. Ty was really there. Not a memory, not a dream, but alive, breathing, standing where he had always belonged. When she stepped out, he was by the paddock, watching Lindy feed the horses. The little girl laughed, her voice carrying across the air like sunlight. and Ty smiled, that same quiet, easy smile that once made the world feel safe. Amy watched from the doorway, frozen between joy and disbelief. Lindy had spent her whole life hearing stories about her father, how brave he was, how kind, how much he loved her. But now those stories had come to life before her eyes. Lindy ran toward him, her small boots kicking up dust. "Mama says you were gone," she said, her voice innocent and curious. "But you came back." Ty knelt down, his eyes filling with tears he didn't try to hide. "I did, sweetheart," he whispered, his voice breaking just a little. "I found my way back." She studied his face for a moment, then smiled, wide and pure, the kind of smile that only a child can give. She threw her arms around his neck, and he held her tightly, as if letting go would make her disappear. Amy felt her throat close, her breath catching somewhere between sobs and laughter. It was the moment she had prayed for, even when she'd stopped believing it could ever happen. Jack watched from the porch, his hat low over his eyes. The old man had seen loss before, too much of it. He'd learned to live with the ache of things that couldn't be fixed. But as he looked at the man he'd once called a son, standing there with Amy and Lindy, something inside him softened. The lines on his face deepened, but his eyes, those sharp, weathered eyes, shone with pride. Without a word, he walked over. Ty stood, uncertain, guilt flickering across his face. He'd left behind more than just family. He'd left behind the man who taught him what it meant to be one. But Jack didn't need words. He stopped in front of him, stared for a long moment, then did something no one expected. He reached out, pulled Ty into a hug, and whispered, "Welcome home, son." The ranch seemed to breathe again. Later that day, Lou arrived from town, disbelief etched across her face. She had always been the practical one, the voice of reason, the anchor when emotions ran wild. But the moment she saw Ty, all logic vanished. She dropped her bag and ran to him, hugging him with the kind of force that comes from years of holding grief too tight. "I don't understand how any of this is possible," she said, her voice trembling. "But I don't care. You're here, and that's all that matters." Dinner that night was different. No one spoke of miracles or explanations. They just sat together, the way they used to, laughing through tears, filling the spaces that had felt empty for too long. Ty told stories about the places he'd been, small towns, hospitals, strangers who helped him when he couldn't even remember his own name. It wasn't a full story, not yet, but it was enough. Amy watched him across the table, memorizing every detail, the sound of his voice, the way he smiled when Lindy asked questions, the way his hand brushed hers under the table, like no time had passed at all. She wanted to freeze this moment, to keep it safe somewhere inside her where laws couldn't reach. When the sun dipped behind the hills, Ty stepped outside, breathing in the scent of the land, pine, dust, and home. Amy joined him, her head resting against his shoulder. They didn't need to speak. The silence between them said everything. Heartland had always been more than a ranch. It was a living memory, built on love, loss, and second chances. And now, standing beneath the wide Alberta sky, it felt whole again. Amy whispered softly, "I used to dream about this, you know? You coming back." Ty smiled, his eyes glistening in the fading light. "Maybe your dreams found me," he said quietly. She laughed through her tears, the kind of laugh that heals something deep inside. For the first time in years, the pain that had lived in her heart began to fade, not because she forgot, but because he was there to help her carry it that night. As stars filled the sky, the ranch seemed to hum with peace. The horses slept soundly, the air was still, and somewhere in the distance, the soft call of an owl echoed through the trees. Inside the house, Lindy slept between her parents for the first time. Ty's hand rested gently on hers, Amy's fingers intertwined with his. The family that had been broken was whole again, fragile, imperfect, but together. And in that quiet, golden moment, Amy knew that some miracles don't come to erase pain. They come to remind us that love, no matter how lost, always finds its way back home. Days turned into weeks, and though Heartland once again felt alive, a quiet unease began to settle beneath the peace. Everyone was grateful, But somewhere deep inside, questions refused to sleep. How did Ty survive? Where had he been all these years? And why did he return now, after all this time, when life had already learned to move on without him? Amy tried to push the questions away, but they followed her like shadows. Every time she looked at Ty, she could see them in his eyes, a story untold, a pain he wasn't ready to share. He would wake up some nights drenched in sweat, breathing hard, his eyes searching the dark as if trapped in a place she couldn't reach. When she asked, he would simply say, "It's nothing," and force a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. One morning, Amy found him standing near the river, staring at the water as it flowed endlessly downstream. The same river where they once rode together, laughing like children, promising each other forever. She walked to him quietly, her boots crunching against the gravel, and for a long time, they just stood there in silence. Finally, she asked softly, "Where did you go, Ty?" He didn't look at her right away. The wind moved through the trees, carrying the faint sound of horses in the distance. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, almost broken. "I don't remember everything," he said, "but I remember pain. I remember cold. And I remember waking up somewhere I didn't belong." He paused, his eyes distant, haunted. "There was a man," he continued, "a stranger who found me, said I was lucky to be alive. He told me I'd been unconscious for days, that I'd lost too much blood. He didn't ask questions, and I didn't have answers. I didn't even know my name at first. I just existed." Amy's heart clenched. She could hear the truth in his voice, the exhaustion, the confusion, the weight of a past he still couldn't escape. "I stayed with him for months," Ty went on, "helping on his ranch, fixing fences, tending horses, just like here. But something inside me always felt unfinished, like there was a place calling me home. When my memories came back, they hit me all at once, you, Lindy, Jack, everything. I didn't know how to face it, how to walk."